This is a quick overview on some of the new features in ioGAS version 7. In the new interface, all of the functions of the program can now be accessed from the ribbon toolbar, with each ribbon bar representing a collection of similar tools. The home ribbon bar will be the first thing that you see when you open a new file into ioGAS, and most of the basic functions of the program can be found from the Home tab. And you can see how the new features are grouped into separate bands of related functionality. This includes opening and saving a file, and access to select variables, attribute manager, data view, and basic graphs and statistics and map tools. Some commonly used features such as select variables, attribute manager, and data view can also be found in the other ribbon bars, which gives you easy access to those tools no matter which ribbon bar that you're currently in. You can double click on each ribbon bar title to retract it, or double click on it again to expand the ribbon. In the file ribbon bar, you can bring in your files through the usual methods with the icons contained within this band. We've also added the functionality to open a file from an acquired database. And we've also made it possible to add new columns into the file via the Join File menu. And this is based on two files having a shared ID column, such as sample number. You can save a checkpoint in the file by clicking on the Save Checkpoint icon. And you can also create a template from this band as well. Opening a template and checkpoint are done from this ribbon bar as well. On the upper right hand corner of the window, we have a quick access toolbar with shortcuts to the help, the attribute legend, and a list of open plot windows. You can also access these functions using some of our new keyboard shortcuts, such as Ctrl L to display legend window, and other useful shortcuts are Alt H to open up the Home tab, Alt D to open up the Data tab, and so on. When we make a plot window active, we will bring up a context toolbar, which we used to call the right hand side toolbar. The context toolbar can now be moved across to the left side of the screen by going to the General Settings dialog, which is found from the Home tab. And in this dialog, you can also set the default coloring scheme that is used in all of your open plots and in the Attribute Manager. This is saved by ioGAS and is retained between sessions. We can now toggle through the state of a toolbar icon, such as a regression line type option, by right-clicking on it and choosing the state to go to. So here you can see that Reduce Major Axis Regression has been added as another option of calculating your regression in both scatterplot and scatterplot matrix. Reduce Major Axis Regression is also found as a new option in the Analysis menu regression tool. Another example of the context toolbar right-click option can be found on the point density cloud visibility setting. And in this version of ioGAS, we have made it so that point density clouds can be reinterpolated to only the data points that are currently in view. On the ternary plot, we can now center the plot using this icon on the context toolbar. And you may also notice that the data points in this plot have an outline around them, and this can be enabled via the rendering settings dialog found on the context toolbar. In the 2-key box plot, outline around 2-key box plot box are turned on by default. On downhole plot, we now have a scrolling window if you have a number of drill holes selected. So this can display up to 50 plots in a window. You can plot a new single trace by variable downhole plot. And it is now also possible to save your x-axis range, which can be done by going to the plot settings by right-clicking on the plot window and typing in a selected range and saving it. Save ranges configuration can be edited in the element ranges XML file, which is found in your user config folder. This is useful if you want to compare patterns between drill holes for a specific range of values, for example. So let's open a couple more downhole plots. And you can see that the same ranges has been applied to the new downhole plot that we just opened. And lastly, on data view window, you can now color all the cells based on rank percentile value. We have made a number of changes to the calculation diagram and spider plot tool. We'll open another file to show some of these new features. And you can see how I open the file from the Graph tab as opposed from opening it from the File tab or from the Home tab. The new and Edit Calculation Tool interface has been completely reworked, and you can now assign a reference name to an expression, which will allow you to refer to another expression from an expression, thus allowing function-of-function calculations to be run. With these changes, it is now possible for us to run a complex calculation such as a CIPW norm calculation, which relies on the use of nested if and else statements. We have made a couple of variants of this CIPW norm, all of which can be found from the normative terminology provided calculation menu. And we have also created a volumetric version of the calculation, which is used to create the normative terminology form of the QAP classification diagram. The Quick Calc menu now also supports conversion between oxide to element and between units for selected elements. So if we have all of these elements selected in ppm, we can choose to convert them all to percent, or we can choose to convert some of them to oxide. In a spider plot, which can be accessed from the spider ribbon bar, we can now make variables from spider plot normalization values. If we click on this icon on the context toolbar while the window is active, we can add normalized values for each of the selected element as new columns into the file. The resulting columns are named with an abbreviated prefix representing the spider plot name plus the element name. We have made some changes to the way rank variable maps work, and these are now called variable maps. And you can find this from either the Home tab or the Map tab. And the reason for that being, we can now choose to use other thematic operations, and this includes 10 equal ranges and an absolute times background thematic operation, which can be useful if you're looking at a spider plot normalized columns such as these ones. So you can see here that the warmer color represents the multipliers of the background values that are represented with these variable maps. Diagram menu now allows our users to create diagram access from two separate calculations files. So let's select a couple of columns that were created from separate calculation XML. And as we create a new classification diagram, we can see that this is now possible, and this was not possible to do before in an old version of GAS. And in the edit diagram window, it's now easier to edit polygon or polyline vertex. So after I created a polygon, while we have edit shape active, we just click on a polygon vertex, and you can choose to edit the location easily just by clicking on it and adding a new value. And you can also delete your vertex from this menu as well. And if you're creating a new polyline, if you hold down the A key while you're drawing your polyline, it will add an arrow to the end, which is useful if you want to better annotate your classification diagrams and such. If you have a session containing a large number of open plot windows, one new thing that you can do is to stop ioGAS from updating all of your plots every time you update your attributes. You can pause updates by clicking on this icon on the ribbon bar, and you can choose to let it run when you have the right combinations of plots open. So let's open a number of different plots by opening a template. Templates can now be used with alias data, which converts your alias data on the fly to the required variables. And you can see how it creates a number of new columns in the file, which are oxide columns that we didn't have before in the file. We only had the ppm version of it. And new in this version of ioGAS is also the ability to attribute classified data in diagram as filter groups. So when we do this, you can see that nothing's happening because updating is paused, and you can access attribute by filter on the context toolbar. And the same thing happens if you change other attributes such as color, shape, and size. So as we do that, you can notice that the plots are not updating as we would expect it to be. However, when we turn on resume updates, you can see that all of the attributes, and including the filter group as well, that will have been attributed after you click on resume updates. This concludes a very brief overview video on some of the new features that we have in ioGAS 7. For more information, please refer to our help file or contact us if you have any further questions.